This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sean Preston.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today, we have a lovely neighbor on with us, and that is Lisa Boate of Menopause Consulting and Coaching. How are you this morning, my dear?
I am great. The humidity has finally broken. We've got some beautiful sunshine after a deluge all weekend, so it's a great day.
It is phenomenal. We had a lot of rain on the weekend. I have a bucket out there just to kind of test it. And for those who are on video, there's about that much water.
Oh, yeah.
4 or 5 inches. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was intense.
So at Costco, they have these bins, or I'd say more like raised garden beds, or like I think 2x8.
Yeah.
And they've got a built-in plug. And I thought, maybe I should probably unplug that. And the amount of water that came out.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, everything is saturated. And at the same time, I will say, like, my backyard looks like a tropical rainforest at the moment. Everything is so lush. So there's, the good in the deluge.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would have never thought that I would have had such a satisfaction from unplugging a garden box like that. It was insanely rewarding. I don't know what came over me in that moment, but I'm a garden nerd, I guess. So
yeah, it's a good feeling.
So this is the first time that you and I had an opportunity to meet. And so I'm super happy to have you on the show. And I am a naturally curious person. So why don't we dive into it? And why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. And I am also very curious, and I'm a podcast host. So I know that this is going to be a super fun conversation. So I'm the founder of Liberated Menopause Coaching and Consulting. And it's been a bit of a road to get where I am. So I actually was an educator for 20 years. And like many, during COVID, started asking questions around, how do I really want to live the rest of my life? And what kept coming up for me was some flexibility and the ability to make my own decisions and to really start being the director of my own life. And while that was happening, my children were also in their late teen years. And I started having this realization of, I'm on the other side of everything I've ever imagined for my life. All I ever imagined was career, young family. That was it. Like, that was the dream. And suddenly I was looking back at that, but I am this person, and I still feel like I'm 16 and I'm vital and I have so much life to live.
Right.
So I eventually made the decision to resign from teaching and to become an entrepreneur. And it was spurred on by that realization of, like, I have a lot of life to live and I know how I want to live it. And while that all was happening, there also were significant changes happening in my body that I did not know or understand. And so I took a menopause coaching specialist certification. And while I was going through that course, I realized, I am experiencing perimenopause, which impacts every single system in your body. And so that also was underlying part of the reason why I made the decision that I did. I wouldn't go back and change it, but I would love to have been able to make a really fully informed choice, knowing everything, the context, and also what was happening with my body. And so I thought, I don't want any other woman to have to make that decision. And while this was happening, the Menopause Foundation of Canada released a report in October, which was coincided with all of this understanding in my own world, that looked at the impacts of menopause in the workplace. And one of the most staggering statistics from that report was that 1 in 10 women are leaving the workforce at the peak of their careers because of unsupported menopause and perimenopause symptoms. I was like, yes, me. I am one of those people. And so, like I said, I wouldn't make a different choice. This is what was right for me. But women deserve to be able to make fully informed choices about what is coming up next in their world. And so that's what brought us to where I am today.
Isn't it wild the amount of information that is just out there, because we live in such a busy world, and then every once in a while you come across a statistic that you're like, why don't more people know about this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it's probably one of the challenges because women and organizations have a problem that they don't even know about, right? Perimenopause is a fairly new word in our lexicon that people don't really understand. I've had conversations with friends and they're like, Lisa, you say perimenopause and menopause, and I tune out because I know that that's not for me. I'm like, perimenopause can last up to 10 years prior,
Really?
yeah, to actual menopause. Like that's the menopause is one day essentially where you realize you haven't had a cycle in 12 months. And everything else that you are experiencing up until that point is perimenopause. And it impacts, yes, your cycles, but also anxiety, depression. Women commit suicide between the ages of 45 and 60 at a much higher rate than at any other time in their lifespan. And part of that is because of the fluctuation of estrogen and progesterone that we don't even know or understand. Brain fog, word recall. Often I will have women coming to me saying, I think I'm in the early stages of dementia. But it really is, your brain is hungry for estrogen that your body just isn't producing anymore. And so your brain is not responding in the ways that it used to. So it impacts in all kinds of ways that most people don't know and understand. And so when organizations see women who they think like, oh, they're really not at their peak anymore. They're not producing what they used to be able to produce. They're not engaging in the same way. Instead of actually looking at the root cause of what's going on, we're not creating spaces that women can actually stay in their jobs that they love, that they are an asset to the organization for. Like when you think about a person, an employee who's been in your organization maybe for 20 years, in my example, who has all kinds of institutional knowledge, which you cannot put a value on,
Yeah.
it makes so much more sense to make, and the adjustments that can be made are really simple that can make a huge difference. So it just really makes sense to know and understand what's happening and then put some things in place that just make, the workplace better for everybody.
So is there like early detection or obviously information and kind of knowing, what it is that you're struggling for? And maybe a two-part question. One is kind of, what do you do when you figure out you have it early and then it goes away the second that you actually hit menopause? And is that true?
No, it's not. And that's a great question. So, so the impacts in postmenopause still continue on, right? Because your body is learning the best way I describe it is learning how to feel at home in a life and body that are under renovation. Right. So, and that renovation can take a long time, right? Your body has been operating on estrogen for most of its incarnation. So it takes a long time for the body to adjust. Can you refresh my memory on what the first part of that question was?
Like, does it lead like early detection? Like if you kind of
Right.
know what your symptoms are and stuff, like if the body's just missing estrogen, you just take more estrogen and that helps kind of balance everything out? Or like, how does that work?
Yeah. Again, that's a great question. And it's a combination of things. So it's kind of a two-pronged in terms of determining when you are in perimenopause. So you can take some tests to see what your hormone levels are at. However, estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating in your body. So on the day that you go to get a blood test, it might show that your estrogen is super high because that happens. It might show that it's normal. It totally depends on the day and where you are in your cycle, where that hormone level is going to be. So it can be sort of a baseline. It can be part of the conversation, but it can't be the whole conversation. So the other part of that is just listening to your body and what its wisdom is telling you. So if you are noticing things like, I am waking up on a regular basis with really severe headaches, and that's something that hasn't happened before. Um, Most people know about hot flushes and night sweats. Those are the two sort of calling cards of perimenopause and menopause, and they aren't explained by anything else. So if you're having those experiences, that's your body's way of saying, hey, there's changes that are happening in here. So let's start paying attention. So it's a combination of those things. And then, yeah, there are lots of ways that we can support our bodies to continue along the health span that we're looking for. So if you go to a healthcare practitioner and that person says to you, like, well, it's just the age you're at. That's how it is now. That is not the answer. So hormone replacement therapy can be part of the conversation if that's a route that you want to go down. There is some really good science and research telling us about the long-term, really positive health impacts of hormone replacement. So that is, and it's a big, complicated conversation. So always make sure you're having that in conversation with your healthcare practitioner, and also go in armed with information. One of the things I give people is an advocacy sheet about how to advocate for your healthcare needs when you're talking to healthcare practitioners, because like I said earlier, this is a conversation that's fairly new. And research around women's bodies, particularly perimenopause and menopause, is in the early stages. So knowing ourselves and being able to advocate for our needs is essential. And then there's the lifestyle components that are the foundation of health and wellness in general. We call them the core four in my world: nutrition, movement, stress management, and sleep. And when we get all of those pieces in place, it is absolutely possible to feel great and to really be able to face your, lifespan. It's a third of your life often that you live in postmenopause, and you get to do that in a way that feels good if you make that choice.
So earlier, I said, tell us a little bit about your business, and you went on your journey, which is great because that's the second question we asked. But let's dive into a little bit more of the coaching aspect in your business per se. I think that's a great segue.
Yeah. And I mean, my business and my journey I can't separate them, right? Because they are so deeply me. And I am also on this journey. So that's part of what makes the work that I'm able to do, one, so fun, because I'm getting to work with women who are in the same stage, and also really gratifying, right? Because like I said earlier, this is knowledge that not a lot of people in our culture and in our society hold or know about. So that is part of the work that I do. One, when someone first comes to see me, I really spend a lot of time getting to know that person, because every woman's midlife, perimenopause, menopause journey is completely different. There's nothing that is standard. So I spend time really getting to know you, what you're experiencing, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, on all of the planes. And then we start looking at what's one action we can take that's going to start making and moving the needle for you. And for me, most often when I'm working with women, I start with strength training. Because strength and resistance training is showing to have the most significant health impacts in health and wellness in general, but really specifically in perimenopause and menopause. And when we start from that place, we're also building confidence. We're building, when you're pouring into your body and you're asking it to have demands that it hasn't before, it's also going to start craving protein and fiber more, which are the two things that really need to increase in intake, right? Stress. Cortisol is released in those a 30-minute workout is really perfect. So that's just the right amount of cortisol that your body actually needs to get up and go and feel good. And then we're sleeping better because our bodies have been active and are working in all the ways they should. So that's the cornerstone for me when I'm working with women.
I mean, the core four that you have is almost the full-on ingredient that is there for everybody, for life.
Oh, I know.
Sleep, get your workouts in, eat right, and manage your stress, right?
I know. It's always it's a double-edged sword when I talk about that, because people are like, Lisa, really? It's those four things again? Yes, it is those four things always. And it's like as unfortunate and fortunate, right? Because we know these things and they're challenging to implement. And at the same time, when you make a decision, and it can just be one small decision to implement one small thing, and that one action ends up having a significant shift and change. And so that's the work I do when I'm working individually with women. And then when I'm working with organizations, we're really looking at professional learning so people know and understand how those symptoms are showing up in the workplace, and policy, right? So having these conversations with supervisors can be challenging. Nobody really wants to have this conversation with the person who's their supervisor. So putting policy in place that's as simple, in some cases, as simple as, do people have the ability to control the temperature in their workspace? Is there a quiet place where someone can go and keep a change of clothes on hand? Because if you have a full hot flush and suddenly you are a sweaty mess, you want to have some clothes and ability to make a quick change. It can be as simple as that, all the way up to looking at structuring and creating menopause leaves within your workforce. So there's a whole range in ways that people can engage and interact.
Yeah, a lot of things are coming to the forefront when it comes to treating people properly in the workplace.
Right.
A lot of people don't leave their jobs necessarily because of the job. They typically leave it because of their boss or supervisor. And if there's a lack of understanding that is there with some of this stuff, a lot of things get overlooked, and it's only performance-based decisions when there's a lot more behind the curtain. And we just need to learn a little bit more about all of this stuff. I think it makes the world a much better place.
Oh, absolutely. Right. We spend so much of our time, right? So much of our lives is spent in the workplace. And I don't know exactly how old you are, but those of us who are in sort of like that Gen X space of like, just work hard, just keep putting your head down, just keep doing it. The place that has gotten most of us to is a space of burnout. In my case, my hair was starting to fall out and I was having panic attacks, like crying in my car every day on the way home from work. That's not a way to live. It's a way to get sick and to not live the way that you want. And so absolutely creating spaces, like, why not? Why are we not creating workplaces where people feel secure and happy and cared for? Because we now know that when those pieces are in place, you get better performance from people, right? You get people who are committed to the work and who are able to show up in a place where their nervous system is regulated. And so you get better quality as well. So of course, we should be walking down this road.
It's funny, eh? You give your staff a little bit of support and you watch them flourish, eh? They haven't
Oh,
figured that out by now.
right.
It's common sense, right? But like you said, lack of understanding with some of this stuff. But
Yeah.
really happy to have you on and help you spread that message. So, okay, are there any like myths or misconceptions in your line of work?
Yeah, well, I think I sort of addressed one of them, and that is that this is just the way life is now. Like there's nothing that you can do about it. So they're absolutely right. Like I mentioned, there's a whole toolkit of practices that you can put in place that really make that shift and change. And there's also, I talk about this a lot on my own podcast, and that there isn't a lot of narrative or story around what it looks like to be a woman or a human who is really thriving at this stage, right? Often we think in the traditional idea around what is success that we should sort of have everything in place at this point, and we're now on the wind down, right? Where I really think that we're only just beginning. And so the misconception is that we don't have value. And often our stories and our voices, women in their 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, our voices haven't been valued. And I feel like it is the work of women of our generation to stand up and say, no, this is what it's like. This is what it looks like to live as a vital, as an empowered, as a leader who is really just starting at this phase.
Yeah, I mean, life doesn't just stop. You keep moving forward. that perspective. And for whatever reason, it seems like from what you're saying, a lot of people kind of get stuck or get hung up on that. Like, I need to have it all dialed in, and I don't. And so I'm freaking out. And it's like, well, no, you still have the other 30 of your life or more left to live. So what are you
Yeah.
going to do with that? How are you going to tee yourself up to get for continued success?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love asking this question on the show because I'm the type of guy that I like to have a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun on the weekend despite the rain, and it's nice to know about the businesses that come on the show, but even nicer to know the people behind the curtain. And so when you're not working on your business or in your business helping women post and through premenopause, what does Lisa Boate like to do for fun?
Oh gosh, my favorite thing is just to be outside with my feet in the water, right? Being around rocks and trees, getting out on my paddleboard is one of my very favorite things to do. Just being out where it is quiet and still and beautiful. Like you, I had a great time on the weekend, even though it was pouring rain. Being with friends and having a meal together. Also, one of the best ways to spend time really communicating and connecting with each other. And then my husband and I just started playing pickleball. Right? We are we are 1 week away from being empty nesters. I cannot believe that this is true, but both of my kiddos are 1 school year apart. So the oldest one took a gap year, the youngest one did not. They both work at a residential summer camp. So they are leaving for camp. They'll be home for 2 weeks, and then they're both going to the University of Guelph in September. So we are like instant empty nesters, which I still am working really hard to get my head around. And so we're looking at each other, asking this question, like, we haven't really thought about what we like to do for fun in a long time. So what are we going to do? And so we've tried pickleball. We're talking about trying curling in the winter, just trying things we've never done before and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, it's always nice to keep it nice and fresh and try new things. I bought 2 pickleball rackets from Costco because it was on a deal, impulse buy.
Yeah.
And I told my significant other that we'll eventually she's like, well, you could have wasted money on that. What if you don't like it? I'm like, well, I'm looking around, and me and you are insanely competitive, and I'm looking around at everybody, and everybody who tries it says that they have a lot of fun and it's amazing. And I'm like, we're probably going to like it. Like 95%, we're probably going to like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am terrible at racket sports. Like hand-eye coordination is not the gift that I was given, but even with like that challenge for me, it was really fun. We had a great time. The first time we played was with our boys, and they were great coaches, and so the 4 of us were out there playing together, which is, when your kids get older, it's the relationship changes, right? Like you're not interacting in the same way. So being in a space where we can play together was so fun.
What are the boys taking in school?
My oldest is going into sociology. He wants to be a therapist. And my youngest is in kinesiology. He wants to be a physiotherapist.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
One for the mind, one for the body. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe they'll open a practice, an integrated practice together.
That's super exciting. I wouldn't be able to do the physio component. I inherited a trait from my mother, so I get queasy when I look at like muscles and blood and all that
Oh,
kind of stuff.
yeah. So my youngest was like very soft and gentle. And last year, he's been doing the sports high skill specialist major at Bear Creek. And they went to the University of Waterloo. They were going to the kin labs there. And one of them is a cadaver lab. And so I was really nervous about like, I don't know how that's going to go. But he came home and he loved it. He's like, Mom, I got to get right in there. I got to touch a tendon. It was amazing. So I was like, okay, this is for you, kid. Great. Have at it.
Yeah,
I like you. I would struggle.
go giver. Definitely something to be said when it comes to the psyche about nature and being out there in serenity, having that calmness and being out there on the water or in nature around rocks and trees, being in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big advocate for that. Do a lot of that, doing a lot of camping and stuff like that this year. And I like to fish as well too. So that's where I get my chance to be on the water. Where do you typically head out to paddleboard?
So we have had a cottage on Kinesis Lake in Halliburton. And so that's where my board lives, and that's where I generally paddle. But we are looking at making some changes, and it's like, how lucky are we that we have Lake Simcoe here, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be my next spot, is trying it out on Lake Simcoe.
Yeah, very cool. It's a dream of mine to go get a piece of land in the next couple of years, and then I can have that for forever, and have an opportunity to build something special on it and then hand it down. I'll be
Yeah.
that grandfather, way down the line from all the people my age now that said, my grandfather in the 50s built this by hand. I won't build it by hand. I'll put some sweat equity into it, but I'll be that guy in, 50 years from now.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful vision. How lovely to be able to give that gift to generations of your family, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, I'm going to enjoy the shit out of it in the process. Beautiful.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than just being able to be like, my favorite thing is waking up there, looking out at the lake, and immediately getting out and getting on my board before I even do anything else. In this world that we live in that feels incredibly intense at this point in time, being able to disconnect and really just like marinate in rocks and trees and water is medicine.
You are speaking my language. Julie
Yeah,
would really like you as well too. You're talking her language as well.
that's great.
So in life, we pick a path to go on, and we figure, hey, this is the path that's best for me based off of your goals, who you are, what you want to accomplish in life, and then life sometimes will get in the way. It'll throw things at us. And as humans, we experience hardships, we experience life challenges. Sometimes they're tragic, sometimes not. Sometimes others experience it worse than others. And I've always been amazed at human beings and our ability to be able to kind of push through these and hang on to things, whether they're silver linings, mindset, glass half full type of stuff. And it's a question we ask on the show. If you've ever experienced a hardship or a life challenge that maybe you rose above it, maybe it made you stronger, maybe you took some silver linings from it.
Yeah. I mean, there's been quite a few along the way, right? I'm 47. And so if you get to 47 and you've avoided all difficult situations, it's highly unlikely. And one of them for me was when just after I turned 30, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And I had two very small humans at the time. One was 6 months and the other was not quite two. And she died within 3 months. My mom, who was strong and healthy, and she was a firecracker in this life. And I like to think that's part of my legacy, that I am continuing the firecrackerness of her. Um, and she wasn't, it was a different time, and she wasn't able to live out everything that she wanted to live out. In fact, she had finally just gotten her dream career rolling, and within weeks she was diagnosed with cancer. And I saw her leave this world in a ball of fury. She was angry that she didn't get to do all of the things that she really wanted to do because she had put everybody else's needs in front of her own until it was too late. And it's taken me a long time to be able to articulate that in that way, and having my own lived experiences. But when I leave this earth, I want to go out looking back, thinking, look at this life that I lived. What a celebration. I want it to feel like a celebration when it's my turn to go, and I don't want to be angry. And so that has informed a lot of the decisions that I have made around valuing, what my own health, wellness, and peace is important. And when I am at home in my body, I make space for everybody else around me to be at home in theirs. And that really changes the way we interact with people, and it makes it a more joyful way of being together. And so, as hard as that was, and I miss my mom every day to this day. And I'm grateful to her for showing me that there is another way that feels better while we're here.
Thank you for sharing that. It's always a tough thing to go through. We all eventually Most of us go through the cycle of life. But it's life is such a complicated thing, and you pick up information where you can. It's, those silver linings, like you said, your mom gave it, but it still takes a little while because we're so busy. I'm learning to try to live now in the moment. I'm a big planner, so I like to plan a lot of things ahead.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do that, you focus more on what's ahead versus in the moment. We were just at the Arkells concert on the Friday night. Best show I've ever been to, by the way.
Yeah, it looked really great. I had just been to see Sarah McLachlan 2 nights before at Budweiser. Also amazing. So good.
And I just took a moment in the middle of one of the songs. I just kind of closed my eyes, looked up at the sky, and those kind of like looking around it. You try to take those moments, and I need to take them more often, but you never know how much time you have. And so it's important to kind of recognize that could be gone tomorrow or in 50 years from now. So recognizing and understanding that it's a difficult thing to try to do because we're just moving and grooving all the time. And but family, friends, all that stuff, super important.
Yeah. I know we're so conditioned to always be looking forward, right? To always be moving forward, like constantly thinking about what's next. And I do that too. I'm not going to say I'm an expert at being present and being in the moment. However, it is one of the things that I'm really focusing on, because the more we can just be present here in this moment, like you said, we don't know. We really don't know. No matter how much we plan and no matter how much we think we've got it like nailed down or locked down, the truth is we don't really know. And so when you see, like when you have that moment when you're in community and listening to music and, as hot and humid as it was last week, that also made it like there was something about that heat and humidity that just amplified that experience for me. And just being able to be present to that and really feel it. Right. So often we don't go in and let ourselves really feel all of the emotions that we're having in that moment. And yet that's what creates these really beautiful, fulsome memories. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Being here and being present is so important.
What's one thing that you wish our listeners knew about your business?
Oh, that you don't have to do this alone. Right? No one was ever meant to figure everything out and just do it on your own. I was having this conversation this morning with a guest on my show about one of the beautiful things about coaching is that humans are often so busy pouring into everybody else that they don't give themselves that time. So that's what I do, right? Like, let me hold you. Let me be the person who makes space for you, who pours energy and love and care into you until you're at a place where you feel full and whole again. None of us can do that completely on our own. And so that's really what is at the heart of coaching.
Amazing. That was a fantastic conversation. I think a lot of people listening to the show all obviously understand menopause and postpartum menopause.
Perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause.
And perimenopause. All keys. Look at that.
Yeah.
Understand it definitely a lot better. Great business, great individual, a must need service out there for people to get help when they need help. And knowing that there is help out there is the first step to getting them on the journey that they need to get. So for those who are interested, they want to know a little bit more about you and your business, what is one of the best ways that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way is through my website. So liberatedmenopause.ca. All of my contact information is there. That is the best way where we can connect. My email address is there. So it's just really smooth and easy. That's the best place to go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. That was a lot of fun. And hopefully maybe we'll be able to get to do this down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was really great. I appreciate you.
No worries. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.